This is Daniel Poppy, host of How to Write Good. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
This is Kim Meyer, the host of Choose to Rise here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, Choose to Rise, where we talk about living with positive mindsets, how to increase our confidence, building our faith, and living out our life on purpose. A new show comes out via podcast every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And if you want to catch the episode live instead, stop by Public House Media around 6:45 Central Standard Time, Monday, Wednesday, Friday as well. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you'll never miss an episode of Choose to Rise. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
In 2014, Germany shocked the world by putting together one of the most talented and most dominant rosters in soccer history.
Götze! It's Mario Götze!
Argentina, they were so close, yet couldn't put it together when it most mattered. Now you've got an Argentina team that's hungry for revenge.
Messi! And Yeva couldn't stop it!
But what about England?
Pass to Rooney. Only Sturridge in the middle. There he is! Goal!
Or France?
And Sissoko! They're running riot!
Or Spain?
It's broken for Fabregas. Now it's Iniesta. This is it. That's the goal.
All 32 teams in this tournament are vying for the opportunity to hoist the World Cup trophy.
Still Gervinho. Oh, he's done it.
If you want to be a part of the action at Russia 2018, you're going to need your soccer passport, the World Cup edition. At Public House Media, we are excited to launch a new soccer podcast called Your Soccer Passport World Cup Edition. Come alongside hosts and fans and guests from around the world as we bring you all the action from the 2018 FIFA World Cup. Because who knows, anything can happen in the FIFA World Cup.
What about that? It's John Brooks!
So come on, grab your soccer passport and join us for all the action from Russia 2018.
A sensational volley!
Hello and welcome to Your Soccer Passport, presented by Squadcast, heard here on Public House Media. I'm Brice Burge, and with me today is Zach Wolpoff. How are you doing today, Zach?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm doing all right. It's been a stunning knockout round to open up everything here with the round of 16. A lot of good games, and we'll get a chance to talk about that here in a second. Just to remind all of our fans, you can find more of Your Soccer Passport currently at thephmedia.com, or you can find them on Apple Podcasts, where you can subscribe and leave a review for us as we continue on Your Soccer Passport. All right, so our colleagues at Public House Media have had a chance to talk about the first two games between France and Argentina and Portugal and Uruguay, which were two traditional powerhouse games that left everybody truly satisfied as fans. And then we got more great games, and I know for you, you were huge on Russia. As we were talking, we both did the Group A preview, and you were huge on Russia when everybody else is huge on Egypt, who just self-destructed. But
Wow.
Russia, holy cow, have they really shown some native pride in terms of being the host country.
Well, so Egypt kind of self-destructed because they didn't play Salah in the first game, and Salah even said that if you would have put me in, this could have changed the outcome, and yada, yada, yada. And then you had the whole Russia match, and Egypt never really got anything going against them, and then Saudi Arabia, they couldn't do anything. So Egypt, they were kind of, out of the gate, they were kind of wobbly. And so if you're out of the gate and wobbly in the World Cup with only 3 games, you're pretty much done. So, but Russia, on the other hand, Russia played an amazingly defensive game. They perfected Park the Boss. And other than that own goal that they gave up 11 minutes in, they played a perfect example of how to park the bus and how to be successful at it. Because what they gave Spain like 1,000 passes, and they still couldn't find the back of the net. Spain had 23 shots, 9 on net, and 79% possession. and they still could only find the back of the net off of a Russian defender. I mean, I don't know about you, but that's just insane.
I think it's absolutely crazy. But, I mean, the other thing, too, that you got to remember, that's all in the second half. I mean, Spain didn't even have a shot taken until the stoppage time in the first half. That is the latest that they've ever taken a shot in any World Cup match ever. And for them to just say, we're not going to start right off the bat, and they're not going to find creative ways, one, shows that they were willing to make halftime adjustments, but also at the same time show that they really didn't have any sustainable options. Yeah, they were taking okay shots on target when they got in a roll, but that was individual playmakers really stepping up, taking the ball on their own. It wasn't a team effort that you would see by a team, let's say Sweden or Croatia, where we've seen them really move the ball well with each other. Instead, you had just the pure playmakers for Spain, and they failed. And I think that is a huge aspect of what this World Cup has come to be about, because Germany has already failed. And Mexico, as like the CONCACAF leader, has failed, and we'll talk a little bit about that in their game against Brazil. But the teams that seem to just want to live on name brands alone are not doing very well. And they're not showing up when they need to show up as a unit. And boy, did Russia exploit that.
So, I'm not quite sure how familiar you are with Japanese customs, or you as a listener, but in Japan, in Japanese baseball, there's a concept of wa, and there's a book on it. I would recommend you reading it. The concept of wa is team harmony and collective team spirit. And teams that have the greatest wa tend to go on and do very well in tournaments like this, in playoffs, in regular season play. And so if you rely too heavily on just individual name brands that don't mend together well with other name brands, then you're gonna have 11 guys out there who all want the ball, and there's only one ball, and they're going to be in a shouting match. And you don't want that as a coach. You don't want that as a fan. You want a team that can put aside the differences and come together, like Russia did. Now, if I can, I'd like to talk about Igor Akinfeev. I can never say his name right, no matter how long I've been following him. In the penalty kick was by far one of his best performances I've ever seen out of him in international play. I've been following this guy for a while, and any time that Russia seems to always be screwed over because he can't stop a shot or he lets the ball in. Like in 2014 against South Korea, he let a ball in for an own goal. In 2012 against Greece in the European Championships, he allowed a ball right through his legs. He could have stopped it. But in the penalty kicks, he did his best Vladislav Tretiak impression and kick-saved the last kick for probably what has been known as, to my Russian friends, as one of the greatest moments in Russian sports history. And that's what one friend of mine described it in St. Petersburg as. So it's truly been a crazy time in Russia right now.
Oh, I bet. And the other thing too is that since the fall of the Soviet Union, this is the first time that Russia has ever beaten Spain.
I look at it as payback for 2008 when Spain beat them in the semifinals of the Euros, but that's just me.
Well, you did bring up Japanese custom there, so might as well go to the next natural fit here as well, and talk about Japan. Japan making the knockout stage in kind of a controversial way, but at the same time, when they showed up, I thought this was going to be the biggest blowout of this round, and instead, they really pushed hard. And
so, you can't really get Japan out ever. Kind of weird. Soccer-wise, I mean, sure, you think it's the J League. It's not that great of a league, but player-wise, internationally, they really do come together They know what this means for their country, and they know what winning it all could mean for Japan. And so they always put together a good collective effort on the international pitch. And the fact that they came out and scored 2 goals in 4 minutes against Belgium, I think it's something that they should hold their head high on. And not just be mopey that they lost with literally 15 seconds left on the clock. They should be happy that they were able to play as well as they did against Belgium, who may go on to win the entire tournament.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. I mean, one of the things that we talked about in the preview podcast was that Belgium is a traditionally overlooked team that has been so good in so many ways and so consistent, but they just never seem to get past the semifinals. And they got held on for as long as they could possibly be held on to by Brazil. And it just took a while, because even though that Belgium had 24 shots and over twice as many shots on target as Japan, and led in every other statistic category besides yellow cards, Belgium had to take the full 90 minutes to get that win. They had to come together. It kind of comes a little bit to that talk that we had in the Spain-Russia matchup of coming together as a unit. And I think Belgium, because they've always played the bridesmaid and never the bride, have come together more as a team than other countries, especially in that Power Six in Europe. That being said, I did not expect this game to go as hard as it did, and Japan just came out gangbusters in that second half, thanks to Haraguchi and Inui. And it's just truly, truly amazing what Japan has been able to do. Plus, additionally, the goodwill that Japan has received in the press in terms of staying after they were eliminated to clean up the stadium and cleaning out their locker room and leaving a thank you note to the host country.
Which I thought was nice, but somebody on Twitter that I follow, somebody retweeted it and said that this is typical for European and American announcers to just be like Japan, give them a pat on the head, a pat on the back sort of thing, and not try and dig through their flaws and try to figure out why they couldn't break through against Belgium again. And which I thought was interesting, because if you think back to even in Russia, the coverage of the Japanese players and the fans was really great. And they were all like, hey, here's what they're doing. Why can't more countries do this? Why can't more countries clean up their stadium? Or our stadium and clean it up so that our workers don't have to work as hard? Which I think is very interesting to think about.
I think you're looking for positives as a journalist, because, I mean, you've already had a Russian fan die because he fell at one of the opening round games.
That was not talked about at all in Russia.
And
when was that?
That was like second game.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so and I know you were actually physically in Russia at that time, but over here it barely got a blip either. The guy fell from a headstand because he was drunk and just fell over the rail. And you've seen that at baseball stadiums, like every couple of years or so, somebody goes take a header off the top deck because they've lost their balance due to inebriation. But like you had that. You had a fine against Mexico for their chance again, and the Mexican fans kind of redeemed that a little bit as they were, swarmed the South Korean embassy and took tequila shots with the Korean ambassador. But even with that, you have all of this political issues that, for us, especially as part of Your Soccer Passport team, that we discussed in terms of what team was going to get the bid next time around, and what countries were going to get the bid next time around, about the political landscape of things. You have to talk about the political the political customs of Japan going in and being nice and honorable despite all, because when you have, let's say, people rioting in Philly after an Eagles Super Bowl win, or rioting in Toronto after a Maple Leafs win or loss, or I remember Vancouver getting really bad after the Canucks lost in the Stanley Cup to the Bruins last time they were in there. But you have just that scenario where you have somebody that did something right, and you focus on that, because honestly, even though that Belgium came back, Belgium held that game statistically the entire time, and Japan had a couple of good runs, and ultimately, even though it was a lot more dramatic than what we expected, it's exactly what we expected. Belgium won this game statistically very handily, and they won the game and moved on.
You know, sometimes soccer is just a game of chances. You could play your game so long for 93 minutes and 45 seconds, but then you slip up that one time, and it's in the back of your net, and you're holding your head going, why? Just why? So,
anything left on Belgium and Japan before we move on?
No, because we're going to talk about the quarterfinals, and so we'll talk more about Belgium there.
I think that's a good call. We did mention Mexico. Let's move to them next. Brazil defeated Mexico 2-0. The curse of the round of 16 continues for the Mexicans. What went wrong for Mexico in this case, or was it just things went really right for Brazil?
A lot of it is Neymar. And as much as I hate to give him credit, because as Pele said, he knows more about his hair than his football. Brazil just came out. Brazil had 20 shots in total against Mexico, 10 on target, and Mexico, although they had 52% possession, they just couldn't get the shots on target. And when you can't get shots on target, you can't really score. So in my mind, a lot of it has to do with Mexico, and they were just trying to focus mostly on Neymar and trying to get at Neymar and not necessarily worry about everybody else on the pitch.
I think that's a pretty sound analysis. When you can't put a shot on goal, you can't win. That's pretty much it. Whether you have dumb luck of somebody being there or not being there, whether you have a good goaltender or not a good goaltender, you cannot excuse a 1 out of 14 shots on target compared to shots. It's just not going to be there. Even at most, let's say the one got in. It is statistically impossible for Mexico to win that game.
Well, unless Brazil does something stupid defensively and puts it in the back of their own net. Yes,
of course. Like an own goal is the exception. But like ultimately that to me is the big deal, is that if you're not putting shots on target, and I do think it's interesting to think that the focus on Neymar defensively has that big of an influence offensively on Mexico, and I didn't see a lot of control. I didn't see a lot of discipline for Mexico once they got on the offensive side of the ball. It was, even though that they had good pass accuracy, it was convoluted by a lot of back passes, and they just didn't have any creativity.
I would be in complete agreement with you. And when you don't have any creativity, you can't really move forward. So,
as much as I would like to talk more about Brazil and Mexico, I just don't think that there is anything else to report. That was it.
Well, I would like to report one thing. What are you guys thinking with the bleached blonde hair? I mean, seriously, come on. When I saw Chicharito do that, I'm like, my eyes, they're burned, so I can't see anymore.
Maybe that's the goal. Maybe that's the point. They can get they can get an offensive advantage by just, shaming their opponents from looking at them. Yeah, I don't know. Whatever it takes. I mean, you were going to need more to beat Brazil anyway. It was just that was kind of a dumb luck draw for Mexico to go and face my pick to win it all this year. But even at that point, it's still like that was an uninspired game.
Yeah.
Let's move to one of the ones, because out of the 3 games that we have remaining, 2 went to penalty kicks, and 1 I think was the better game. I don't think the 2 that went to penalty kicks were the better game. I do think it was Switzerland and Sweden. And
Really?
I want to know what your thoughts were on that.
That's interesting. That's not how I expected you to go with that. I think Sweden just got lucky here. That game could have gone either way. And Switzerland, I don't think... Switzerland, they tried. They had more shots and more shots on net. But they just couldn't find the back of it. And they controlled the possession game, and so they really, really tried. But Sweden walked away with a victory and moving on.
What I like about it is that even though that Switzerland had such possession, Sweden really controlled that game.
They really did, and they were kind of like the Switzerland going, okay, press your luck.
Yeah,
And
it was this old school, almost like it was almost like watching prep football in the United States. We're going to go run the ISO I formation, and we're going to run it on this side of the tackle and this side of the tackle, and you know what we're going to run, and you try to beat me. And Sweden said, we're going to run our counterattack. We're going to work together very well. We're going to make sure that our passes count when they do, and then try to beat us at what you think is your game, because we're going to let you have a little bit of a buffer here. And Switzerland is a very blue-collar team that works as a team together. And they bended, and they bent, and they bent into 11 corners, and they did not yield. They did not yield that goal line to Switzerland. And it was such a different performance to so many of these high-scoring group play games that it was just a completely different style of soccer or football that we have seen throughout the entire World Cup. It was just that wacky game that I'm really happy Sweden won it. They won it their way. And to me, it was that nice little entertaining clash as just the pure drama of the other games continued along. This one was a completely different makeup, and I enjoyed it mostly, and I think I enjoyed it more because it was so different than the rest of the games in the round.
That's a fair assessment of it. But at the same time, I kind of felt that the Croatia-Denmark game, especially extra time, was a lot better. But that's just me. That's what I'm looking for in a football match. But again, this game really could have gone either way, but Sweden was the one to answer the call and grab the brass ring.
I guess that's the quirkiness in me. I like difference because I'm not. The one thing that I do want to say is that I don't think the other games were bad by any means. It's just that out of the games that we had remaining, like that one was just so different. And it was so oddball compared to the other ones that we had, or even talking about, let's say, the France-Argentina game.
Right.
Like we had a lot of traditional drama-filled games that were great to watch, and then sandwiched randomly in between was a different style of football and a different style of soccer that you might pick up through a different league or a different match. And I felt that between Sweden and Switzerland, the best possible game that they could have put together in terms of fan enjoyment, in terms of their individual skill sets that their team makeups provide, this was the best game that they could have put on their pitch. And that was because they played to their strengths even better than, let's say, a team that may make a mistake but provide more drama, like the Croatia-Denmark game, for example, where some of their mistakes directly led to some of the successes by the other teams. But I thought that was really Denmark's, or really Sweden's, push the entire time. That was their game plan. It wasn't necessarily getting lucky on a couple of plays and having them compound on each other. It was their game plan all along to go that route, and they made it work.
Right.
So let's move on to the one that you did bring up. Croatia-Denmark. A 1-1 tie going through everything until penalty kicks when it was 3-2 by the Croatians, who have not lost yet, I believe, in this World Cup. Correct me if I'm wrong on that one.
I believe you're correct. Hang on. 2-0 over Nigeria, 3-0 over Argentina, 2-1 over Iceland, 1-1, 3-2 over Denmark in penalties. Yep, they haven't lost yet.
That's crazy. That's crazy for this Croatian team, which a lot of people liked, but didn't like that much.
Well, I mean, Croatia has historically, since their independence, they historically have had good to great teams, and have always been a force to be reckoned with. And people are always like, yeah, they're going to do well, they're going to get out of the group stage, but how far can they really go? And I think we're now seeing Croatia being like, okay, they're for real. And if you made a second bracket in the round of 16, maybe you start thinking, I like the dark horse here. Maybe Croatia could be the dark horse to do it.
Absolutely. Now that game, just in terms of gameplay, was quite an interesting setup just because both goals were scored in the first 4 minutes of the game. Denmark coming out just right off the bat and getting a goal in the first minute before Croatia responds thanks to Mandzukic at 4 minutes. And then nothing hits the back of the net until penalties.
I just thought that whole, let's score 2 goals in the first 4 minutes, and then everyone thinks, yeah, it's going to be a good old-fashioned barn burner. Then there's nothing for 116 minutes after.
It's a little different than expected, eh?
Yeah, much.
And so, what does that mean for a fan as they're watching this game? Like, there's so much anticipation, but yet there's not anticipation at the same time because it never really fully comes to fruition.
I mean, when that happens, you start to think to yourself, all right, we're going to see a lot of goals, and then everything just keeps happening. And you're like, okay, we're not going to see a lot of goals. That was just a tease, and you're just kind of like, I wanted more goals. Oh, well. But, I mean, don't get me wrong. It was a very good game. Extra time was phenomenal. The one thing that I really want to talk about was that missed penalty in the 116th minute. The fact that
set the stage for the fans as well. What happened?
All right, so Matthias Jørgensen, defender for Denmark, makes a hard foul on Luka Modric. I don't speak Croatian. Modric, I think.
Modric? Luka Modric, the midfielder, where's the number 10 for Croatia?
Yeah. And he gets the penalty. And Denmark's angry, of course. But he takes the penalty. Now, who's in net? Kasper Schmeichel. His father played for Manchester United back in the day. Kasper's son plays for Leicester City. He backstopped them to the Premier League title. And so Kasper just comes out and stops it. And so interesting note, that's his third penalty faced in the 2018 World Cup in regulation. The most by a goalkeeper in a single tournament since the USA's Tony Manola in 1990. So I really think that at that point, Denmark felt that, okay, we can win this game. We just had this massive penalty stop. The momentum was all on their side. They thought that they could do it. And then going into penalty kicks, I really thought that this was Denmark's chance to come out and surprise everybody and be like, it's not going to be Croatia. Croatia's not going forward. We're going forward. We'll face Russia. And don't get me wrong, penalties were great, but Denmark just couldn't do it. Croatians stood up and took it.
And that's a huge factor moving forward because we've got one more game to talk about in this round that we will have to talk about. But Croatia does face off against a team that had penalty kicks to win as well. So I think that's a good point to take a break here and go to that last game, Colombia versus England.
That was
wow, that was an amazing game in its own right as well.
Not only was it an amazing game, I really thought that there was going to be a full-fledged brawl on the field at some point. Somebody was going to start swinging fast, and there's going to be a multiple red cards. Because as you saw with the free kick right before the end of the half, there was a yellow card that was delivered in the box that really could have been a red if the ref really wanted to look at it at VAR. And then you had there was an unconfirmed report that one of their Colombian coaches headbutted, I believe it was either Rashford or Sterling, in the tunnel. And that was not looked at or talked about by the refs. And I just thought, if they really wanted to, they really could look back at the footage and see if that happened, and they could have ejected the coach. But to have Colombia come back and score a goal in the dying minutes of extra time, and send it to extra time, when all the English fans are chanting, "It's coming home, it's coming home," or at least all the English fans that I know are chanting that, and to have that, it just really blew the wind out of their sails. But to come back and do it in penalty kicks and exercise the demons that have plagued the English team in shootouts for so long was just something that was really great for England, all of England supporters.
I think so, because for all the years that we've kind of talked, and we talked about this a little bit in the preview as well, that England was going to be kind of that team that could possibly be overinflated by positive expectations. For them to go out and win in a way that had typically ousted them in previous World Cups was a nice little breather for them. It was a definitely a security blanket that has been wrapped around the English fans, and especially after Colombia, who is such a hard-fought team and is probably one of your more contact-ridden South American teams, we'll put it that way. It was a different style of game for England to go up against, and they really surprised a lot of people with how they won this one.
I mean, I would definitely agree with that. I mean, I don't know if you've ever watched Colombian league soccer, but they are very physical down there, and it's the point where you look at it and you go, they really should be playing this with pads and a helmet almost, because it's just that physical down there. And if that's the way that you talk, that's the way you're going to bring it to the World Cup. And frustration just set in for a lot of these players, and they just started going after England and the ref too.
Yes, and that got nixed a little bit. But do you think it was enough to throw Colombia off their composure when it came down to the penalty kicks?
Yes and no. I mean, when you're playing that game for so long, and then it comes to penalty kicks, you need to control your breathing, slow down your heart rate, clear your mind, and take the kick. And sure, Colombia did that, but at the end of the day, they got stopped. And hitting the crossbar really doesn't help in penalties. And hitting the goalie's hand doesn't help. So
all right, that's just that's the way it is. And
yep.
I think that's a good wrap up of the 6 games in that round. Just to let you know, as we start going into this new preview round of the upcoming games, and then also kind of doing as a rapid fire in case of any of our Your Soccer Passport colleagues want to take a spin at it as well. I went 7 of 8.
Wow.
in the round of 16. The one game that I missed was that I picked Spain over
I knew
Russia.
it. I knew it. I knew you were going to pick Spain.
So I did not have Spain winning the next round by any means, but that's a great thing is that I get to keep my picks for all like this is March Madness, man. I'd be racking up points. But it is the World Cup. So our quarterfinal round is Uruguay versus France, which is a huge game because it knocked out a couple of the traditional powerhouses and replaced them with powerhouses that haven't had a chance to be at this stage in a while. Brazil and Belgium, your typical powerhouses that both start with B, and then bring a couple of different styles of game to the pitch. An interesting political matchup between the host nation of Russia and Croatia, which is also a European team, an Eastern European team that is fairly new and has not lost the game yet. And Sweden and England, which are relatively close to each other, but also the two teams remaining that have a cross on their flag. So there's always some kind of connection here as it comes along.
Very, very good point.
All right, so in 2 sentences or less, tell us who's going to win Uruguay-France.
France. I mean, how could you stop? They just beat Argentina. How can you vote against them? Uruguay's old and aging.
Uruguay is old and aging, but they also have two of the best up front people. I think if France had any team to lose against, it would be ones that could stretch out the field and embarrass them because of how quickly France can self-destruct when they are embarrassed. And if Uruguay can score a goal early, like first 15 minutes or so, it's theirs, but I don't think they'll be able to do it. I think France is going to win this one, but they're not going to like winning it at all. And I'm going to take France needing extra time but not penalty kicks 2-1.
If it does go to extra time, and Kylian Mbappe is still in the match, I would expect Mbappe to be subbed out in extra time for Florian Thauvin. Thauvin made his World Cup debut last match, came in on the 89th minute. That was the first time he's been off the bench since he was called up to the French squad. I just wanted to put that on there because I'm mad about the fact that he's only on 4 minutes.
Okay. All right. Brazil and Belgium, who takes this one?
If Brazil's going to lose a match, it's going to be against Belgium. Belgium offensively they're cannon. And defensively, I really think that they can hold Brazil and shut down Neymar. But again, it's Neymar, and Neymar can choose what Neymar wants to do because he's Neymar.
Brazil has been the team that has prepared the most diversely with their lineups and has prepared the most diversely with their staff. Neymar is en route to throw a fit, and the second he is, he's going to get subbed. And Brazil will win because of it. And if Belgium, a team that has I said it early, always been the bridesmaid, never the bride, this is why they're going to lose to the eventual champion in Brazil in this game. I'm going to take Brazil in penalty kicks with a 2-2 draw going into it.
Interesting choice.
I'm going to I'll go pitch to Russia and Croatia. I have a very strong feeling that this is going to be our most contested choice of the group.
If Russia's going to win, they need to copy and paste the profile for Spain, the Spain game. They need to park that bus. They can't afford to have Croatia get a free kick close. They need to be smart in the box. They need to shut down everybody offensively and not allow the ball to come anywhere near the box. If they can stop the ball from coming in at the 35-yard line, perfect. And that's the only way Russia's going to win this match. They need to get lucky going the other way on the counterattack. But Russia really needs to park that bus. And if you hear me screaming, park that bus somewhere, it's probably going to be A, me, and B, very very, very loud.
I would agree with that game plan, but I think Croatia is wide enough where they can really move the ball. When they get closer to the goal line, they can move it on the outside, I think, a little bit better than some other teams this year, and find some interesting runs in because of it. You can park the bus, but if somebody gets on the bus and runs straight to the bathroom in the back, you're still going to cause some damage. So that's going to be what happens to Russia, and I think Croatia's going to win this 1-0 in regulation. Let's go to the quarterfinal. Sweden and England. What you got?
I really think that if all the English fans are true, and this is coming home, and England needs to show up like they're playing for it, and they need to show that it's coming home, and they need to put an exclamation point on this game. If they're going to do it, I really think Sweden is the opponent to do it against, because of the way that England's been playing. Even today, England didn't dominate almost at any point. It was mostly Colombia, or they were mostly like trying to pick and choose. They weren't dominating. So they need to come out dominating and get all England's hopes up before they go on to the semifinal.
I don't know about this game.
Yeah, it's really a toss-up.
Because Sweden has this swagger to them that doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense that they're winning the way that they have, and I applauded them highly in the recap portion of this show, and because of that just like difference, it's so hard to know if I really want to go and say no, Sweden doesn't have a chance. But I think England's going to pull ahead. I think they're going to need extra time, and I think they're going to get lucky later on. Sweden could panic a little bit and get a penalty drawn against them, or something along those lines. It's going to feel dirty. It's going to be an English win, but you're not going to be happy about it. Nobody's going to be happy about it. There's not going to be a single fan in the world, unless you're a diehard English fan, that's going to be happy about this win against Sweden. But I'm going to take England 3-2 in extra, just because I don't think anybody's going to like what happens.
All right, that's fair enough.
And so that does it for our picks. Obviously, there's going to be some more talks and more content coming in to stamp the pages of Your Soccer Passport. But as of right now, that is it for today's show. As always, subscribe and review on Apple Podcasts, and take a moment to check out Public House Media on Facebook for a wide variety of shows like this one. For Zach Wolpoff and the rest of the Public House Media staff, I'm Brice Burge. Thanks for listening.